Hi, my name is Shawn Taylor. This is my friend Jaimee Rindy, and somewhere behind her face is my other friend
Me.
Chris Ford. There he is. Thanks for speaking up so we can see you, Chris. And we have a very special episode for you today because we're going to do a few things. First, we're going to talk about our weeks, like always. Second, we are going to have an extremely important debate about food, and we're going to invariably settle it in the most American way possible by popular vote, which we all know is a
Yeah,
flawless
it's
system.
going really well right
Popular
now.
it is going. Yes, popular vote is clearly the only right way to do things. And then we are going to get a quick review of a recent Avatar book that came out from Chris, Legacy of the Fire Nation, and then finally we are going to get to what I consider to be a pretty divisive episode of the show that is called The Beach. It is book 3, Fire, episode 5, The Beach, episode 45 overall, give or take. And at least I personally consider it to be kind of a divisive episode. So it should be, hopefully, a pretty interesting podcast episode. But I'm going to segue into that first by saying, hi, Jaimee. Thank you so much for joining us. And we were wondering if you would tell us how you were doing.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me back on, especially for this episode. Big fan, anyway.
I'm always happy to have you on to be outvoted. No, for you to outvote me. That's what.
You always bring me on for the episodes that you hate, and it's fine.
I think it's important because I am often, in the words of John Mulaney, I am often wrong. And I think it's humbling and good for me to see that live. I think that's important for me.
I mean, it's not right or wrong. It's more like coming down to different tastes, and we'll get into it. But the point is that I'm very happy to be on this episode. And my week has been pretty solid. My birthday was on Monday, so that was fun. Always lines up with the Super Bowl. Yeah.
You were overshadowed by America. I am sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry.
It happens. It happens every year. It's always on Sunday or Monday. But yeah, so that was cool. And I'm interviewed for a new job today.
Awesome.
Ooh,
awesome.
Nice.
Well, happy belated birthday, and I hope the interview went well. Unless you don't want that job, in which case I hope it went honest.
Want that job, and it's gonna be great.
Great.
I think it went well. We'll see, I guess.
Great.
So
sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you already. I'm off to a good start.
No, that's all I said. I said we're going for it. It's going well.
Chris, how about yourself? How's your week been? It's only been like 3 days since I've talked to Chris, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it hasn't. It hasn't been that much.
You can have too much of a good thing. It's like a big cookie, in the words of Troy from Community. It's like a giant cookie.
Yes. He was on good. Chiefs won. Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. So
my
Jaimee
second favorite team. Go Chiefs.
Yeah, sports, football, yay.
Hashtag sports ball. Yeah. It is. I've never seen anything as. I was in Lawrence for a national championship and for an 11-win football season. I have never been in a city as insane about. I was pretty close to Kansas City when they won the World Series. I've never seen a city as insane as anything as this city is about Patrick Mahomes. Not even the Chiefs in general. Just Patrick Mahomes. He is. Yeah. So that's cool.
I mean, even last year when they lost. Sorry, Jaimee. Even last year when they lost in the AFC game.
I don't care. Yes, I don't get a say in what we talk about.
Even when they lost, like fans are like, "Hey, you know what? It's fine. We have Patrick Mahomes. He's 20 at that point. I think he was 23. He's 23 years old. He's like the best quarterback. We'll be fine." And they were fine, and they won Super Bowl anyway. Since then, I've been focusing a lot on my mosaic glass piece I've been doing on static, and I feel more like an artist lately because it's weird. Sister Act 2, I'm gonna bring that up if you know that movie.
Love that movie. That's a great one.
What's the segue here? I would like to know.
No segue. He just wanted to bring up a great movie.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg and the lady that plays Professor McGonagall. I forget her name, but she is a killer actress.
Maggie Smith, come on, what are you doing?
I don't know anybody's names, but I respect her.
But one thing, I do love the movie Sister Act 2. But in that movie, she wants to get Rita, aka Lauryn Hill, to sing, right? And she tells her, like, you're a singer. If you wake up and you think about singing, and then you're a singer. If you think about that throughout the whole day, then you are a singer. right? That's about doing what you love, and you are that. So that's the segue here. So like, I go throughout the past like couple days, and I've just been so focused on getting this mosaic art piece done. Like when I go to work, I look at pictures of it. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this and do this. So I feel like when I wake up, I feel like I just want to go in and work on this art. And I do quotation marks art because I feel like I'm not.
No, it is art. You take those quotations away.
I just took someone. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I cannot wait to see the product.
I'm excited to do it. It's my first mosaic glass piece ever, and I think it's going really well. I'll probably only ever do two. After I'm done with this one, I'll take a break because I've been working on this thing for like 5 months now. I think I've committed like over like 250 to 300 hours on it, or somewhere around that time.
Nice.
It was the lone bright seeing that, even in its unfinished form, was the lone bright spot from having to drive to your house to watch that movie. No, well, other than spending the time and whatnot, but I did. Even in its unfinished state, it was more artistic than anything I've ever made in my life. So, a low but true bar.
Yeah, well, that's how my week has been going. So after we're done with this podcast, I'll probably be up till 1 o'clock in the morning working on it again because that's what I've not been getting a lot of sleep lately.
Okay.
I mean, catching.
Outrageous.
On average, I've been going to sleep at like 1 o'clock or 1:30. Then I wake up at like 6:50. Go to work, stuff like that. Work 40 hours a week. Take care of kids. I've been taking like little naps in my breaks at work, which are pretty good.
Like the power nap, the 10 to 15.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm good at napping. Like I go straight into dreaming. Really, I'm proud of myself.
That's impressive.
Definitely cannot do that. I work during the days, come back, maybe play some volleyball, and then go immediately to bed. There's none. I used to be so much more of a night owl, and I'm not anymore.
I was a night owl before I had a job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We work like actual hours.
The thing is, the thing is, I gotta really like change my schedule up before the baby's born, and because that's gonna change my time.
It's gonna do it for you, that's for sure. Yeah, it's gonna do it for you.
Yeah.
Can you?
Oh yeah, it's just. Huh?
Can you remind us, or if you care to at all, a due date or a rough due date?
Due date is May 17th. Yeah. So it's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, almost in the third trimester. We're having another boy.
Another boy. Excellent.
Oh my gosh! Yay! That's much. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
So good. That's so good.
You still got 3 months to figure out the sleep part, though. You'll be fine. You're prepping right now.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I never know how to segue into my own week. I always want to be like, "How was your week, Shawn?" Well, it was great because I never know how to do it. It just sounds selfish. But I just need to note that all I did was watch Community with my wife and watch Static Shock by myself because it occurs to me that Planet Comic-Con here in Kansas City is only 6 weeks away, give or take. 6, 7, something like that. Sneaking up on us, yeah.
The Comic-Con season. Mm-hmm.
It's coming that time of year. So, and I have a lot of weekends booked between now and then. So I got to stuff a lot of Static Shock in as many places as possible. But my wife, fortunately, also really loves Community. And that has been a boon in our household. We've been looking for a show that we can bond over. So it's been great. And that's
one of my top 3 comedies of all time.
Gosh, I got to be honest. It might be my number 2 comedy of all time. I really like Futurama. I always have, but I would say that Community is very close, if not the same, tied 1-2, whatever.
Nice.
Well, now we need to do our top 3s. All right,
yeah, go ahead.
My number 1 is Scrubs. I've been rewatching Scrubs lately a lot. I absolutely love that show so much. Community is probably number 2. That show just genius on so many different levels.
It does. It hits me right here.
Yeah, and then number 3 is a fairly newcomer to the game, which is The Good Place.
I knew you were going to say Good Place. I knew you were going to say it.
It's amazing. I forgot I recommended it, Shawn. I've never seen a smarter comedy that balances and philosophy, um, humor, heart, all of it. It does it all so well. Story, like, has twists and turns, um, just ethics of it all. Amazing show.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm willing to separate the animated from the non-animated and probably see those as different genres the more I think about it, in which case Community would be my obvious first, and I don't have a real close second because I haven't watched a ton of Scrubs. I haven't watched enough to know, and I haven't started The Good Place, but my wife did agree that we could try that one next. Jaimee, what's your top three? Give us your top three.
Ooh, comedy is hard for me. I feel like I've watched so much. Like, I've watched all the shows, but like they don't. I mean, coming to just top of my mind, Parks and Rec is
Mm,
definitely
yeah,
up
I
there.
like Parks and Rec. I like
Yeah.
6-ish seasons of Parks and
Mike
Rec.
Mike Schur, the creator of Parks and Rec, is like, he's a freaking genius. Like, he created Parks and Rec. He wrote on The Office. He created The Good
Yeah.
Place. He created Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, this dude he knocks out of the park
Yeah,
in
he's just
everything he
solid.
touches.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, really, really solid as well. And like I said, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I end up watching them all, and I find them all really good. But like, comedy just doesn't really like. It's not really my genre of TV that I always go back to. But like, I really like Parks and Rec. Obviously, I mean, who doesn't love The Office?
Sure.
And like animated, I mean, I've seen a lot of the animated. Like recently, I've been watching BoJack Horseman. It just finished up. I've recently been watching Silicon Valley because it also just finished.
I like Silicon Valley. I haven't seen it all, but I really like it.
Yeah, Silicon Valley is really good. I really enjoyed that. Longtime South Park fan. I don't know.
Excellent.
Yeah,
it's strange that you, like, in my head, you're like, she's way too young for South Park. It's like, no, South Park has been on forever and ever and ever. It's crossed generations at this point. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think I've seen like every episode of South Park. So I mean, I've seen a lot of South Park.
Animated, I love South Park and Archer and Futurama. I like stupid, funny dialogue is kind of my go-to. Stupid, funny dialogue.
I like more of. I mean, I like with South Park. I like the commentary and the satire, and I like I like everything that it does, and it just pushes boundaries, and I like anything that pushes boundaries.
Yeah.
That one maybe more so than most, but yeah.
That's fair. Well, man, I wish I had a slide for that. That was a fun discussion.
Discussion.
I gotta throw a slide in there real quick. No, actually, I'll do my best to usher us along because Jaimee and I both have a bedtime, and Chris has a glass mosaic to make. So I'm gonna do my best to usher us along.
I have a job. I have a real work thing now.
Chris has a job and children, and he complains the least about bedtimes, and that
actual excuse
makes me feel selfish every time. But I'm still gonna continue to have my bedtimes. Selfish.
I just really don't need a lot of sleep. I say that, but a couple years from now, it will catch up to me.
Or I think our bodies are good at adapting. So I'm just gonna hold out hope that you're actually developing a superpower. That's what I'm gonna hold out hope. So I'm gonna segue. I don't have a segue. I'm just gonna move it into the Waffles versus Pancakes discussion. And I have a proposal, and that is that either Chris or myself, I will let Chris choose. He's like the home team because we're on his YouTube channel. So I'll let him choose which one of us should go first and which one of us goes second. And it's not rebuttals or arguments. I just want we just points. Like 1 minute of points, and then the other person 1 minute of points. And then when Jaimee breaks the tie with her 1 minute of points, that is the end all be all decision, and the rest of the world has to bow before the final decision. And it's no pressure, Jaimee. But
all right, Shawn, I will allow you to go first.
You allow me to go first. All right, I'm going to try to hold it to about a minute here, and I've got my little clock there to hold myself accountable. So, I love waffles. Waffles are better than pancakes, in my opinion, because I like crispier foods, so they got a crispier structure. It retains its structural integrity when you put the toppings on it better than a pancake. It holds the toppings. I like my toppings compartmentalized. I want peanut butter on this half sometimes and syrup on this half sometimes. I can compartmentalize my toppings. It has the potential to be shaped into other things. A pancake, you could kind of roll it and shape it into other things. You do all the same thing with a waffle, but with better structural hold. And then it also has, you can do homemade I admit that homemade waffles are not as easy as pancakes. That's like the one big argument that kind of irks my joints the other way, is that homemade pancakes, easy. Homemade waffle maker, whole separate appliance. I understand that argument. But frozen waffles, I maintain decent frozen waffles in a toaster, properly toasted, are still pretty decent, and you can't have frozen pancakes. So that's my leveler, and that is all my points. And that's right at about 30 seconds, or about a minute, excuse me.
Good job on a minute.
Thank you.
Okay, waffles are okay, and Eggo waffles are fairly terrible. One thing, because you can't. They taste like waffle cones, right? Because if you put them, I have to cook them in a specific way. I first have to warm them up in the microwave just to get them all evenly done. Then I got to put them in the toaster to get them all crisp. And by that point, it's just weird. The best waffle that you can get is probably at, what's that place called? Waffle House. And it's not even that great. And that's the best waffle you can get. Now, I do like the waffles shown here. Those are okay. I can make those at home, but they're still not that great. Now, pancakes, you talk about toppings. Pancakes are so good, they don't need toppings, right? It's a cake. It's a cake in a pan. It doesn't get any better than that. It's just for breakfast. Cake for breakfast, Shawn. Cake for breakfast. Like, if you can get great pancakes anywhere. Even McDonald's pancakes is better than the best waffle. But IHOP, Cracker Barrel, and these pancakes are all have variations, but they're all really good. IHOP, fluffy, Cracker Barrel, you can get a little crisper. If you want some of that crispiness there, you can get it. But I've never just eaten a waffle and be like, this is good. I've eaten plenty of pancakes and thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
That's funny. That's funny to me. So I have two questions. It's not rebuttals, actually, like genuine questions. Yeah. You said the Waffle House, like the chain, the Waffle House, or do you mean Hanover, the pancake place?
No, I meant Waffle House. Oh darn it, I forgot another point.
No, please, because you got to talk about Hanover. I think it's hard to have this discussion without it. Go ahead.
Yes, that's what I meant. Okay, Jaimee, you don't know this, but I'm a legend.
Okay. Wow. I was not informed of this before I joined this podcast.
I will admit it's actually semi-true.
So there is an amazing. Shawn talked about waffles being used in different ways, but if you make a pancake, right? You make like a foot long diameter pancake. At this place where we're from, there is a place called Hanover Pancake House. They make a pancake. It's about a foot in diameter. They put eggs, hash brown, sausage, cheese, bacon, and they wrap it up like a burrito. It's called a pancake wrap. Ooh. In order to be satisfied, you only need half of this. And that is one of the most amazing things I can eat for breakfast. One day, I got challenged by someone to eat two in one sitting. I was like,
it's a meal. It's not like somebody just arbitrarily chose two. It's actually a meal offering at Hanover.
Yeah. And it's really huge amounts. I came really close. I was only like 4, maybe 3 bites short of finishing 2 complete ones. But still, the waiters there, if you go there today and you order a pancake wrap, they'll be like, oh yeah, there was a guy from Payless who ate 2 of them in one sitting. And I'm like, I know. That's me.
Yeah, I'll be like, I know that guy. I came here just for that.
I do have a second clarifying question. You said you had to put your waffles in the microwave. I love pancakes or the waffles out of the toaster because I feel like I've got my toaster setting where it just like a nice, even, crisp, and warm. Do you not get that out of the toaster? Or
no, I don't. The thing is that I don't want my waffles to be that hard. If it's that hard, I gotta overcompensate and put more syrup on it to soften it up.
So
and then that throws off the sugar to cake or batter or waffle ratio. Okay. So I gotta warm it up a little bit in the microwave, and that way it toasts just the optimum amount in the toaster.
That's probably going to come down to like a texture preference, and I just like crispier, harder foods. So honestly, if we're really digging down into it, that might be like the baseline difference, I suppose. But okay, Chris, nicely argued. And I should point out, I also don't hate waffles. I love pancakes. Excuse me. I love pancakes. Just love waffles more.
I do like those Belgian waffles with peanut butter on it.
Oh, really good. Those are the best. That being said, I think we have to let Jaimee decide for all eternity in the entire internet.
Wow.
She has to settle the debate of
So much
which is better.
Wow. Okay.
Watch
Well.
her not like either.
She's like, I hate food. And wait, what? I hate breakfast.
No, I do have an answer. And I've been thinking on this one because I was warned well ahead of time that this was going to be a thing. So I've really had to like weigh my options here, weigh the pros and cons, and I have come down on a single side. Okay, ready for this?
I'm about to be heartbroken, I can tell.
No, I pick waffles. I love it. I'm a more textured person as well. I like the crispierness of the waffles. That being said, I don't like a whole lot of sweets for breakfast. Like if I were to choose, like I would have like a breakfast burrito over either of those things. But do love a waffle. I used to have a waffle iron, and I would go so hard with waffles on the weekends. And I feel like when I made pancakes, like I was like, this is not like enough. Like I would eat like 4 of them, and I would be like, I feel like I just had a dessert for breakfast, and I don't know. I don't know if I want that, but I do like waffles. You can also do them like savory, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah. But I like pancakes too. I mean, I would not be mad if someone made pancakes tomorrow morning. I'd be really happy with that, actually.
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say that Jaimee, she's probably actually just humoring me because she knows she's going to side with Chris later when we talk about the episode. She's like, I'm going to level the playing field.
Yeah, I can't.
Going to soften the blow. She probably actually loves waffles. So, Jaimee, I appreciate where your heart's at right there.
Waffles. I'm a big waffle fan.
Both good. If you can eat pancakes or waffles, you're gonna be happier one way or the other.
Exactly.
That was
I think tomorrow I might go get some chocolate chip pancakes from Hanover.
Chris, so this weekend coming up is Valentine's Day weekend, which I don't care for, but I understand that as a holiday. But then the next weekend, I was thinking we need to like do an in-person recording at your house again, so we can play Super Smash Brothers and start thinking about this Super Smash Brothers idea. And then maybe at that time we should go like real late night run to Waffle House, because I haven't got to do that in a long time. So put that on the table, pun intended. Thank you for indulging that conversation. We can talk about actual real life Avatar stuff now, which we're going to start with. Chris is going to offer his review of Legacy of the Fire Nation, or at least a miniature review of this recent book. Oh yeah, hey, it looks better in person.
Yeah. It looks very pretty. I love it.
Yeah,
it is very.
That's a great.
And
cover.
that is so. Quick review here. That is the highlight, really, of this book is its prettiness.
Oh, I
mean,
was
that's not
the cover is the highlight of the book.
I don't think
like
that's
the art in this book is really, really amazing. Like it is really good. You probably can't see that well, but yeah, you can't see that well. Never mind. Why am I
it's
showing
decent.
that?
No, it's decent.
It's decent. Okay, like
Yeah,
what is it? Azula. That's
Jaimee, you have
really...
to stop talking, okay?
Like the art is it's really good. Like I really want this artist to do even more Avatar artwork. I wish I could find the artist's name because original illustrations by Sora Medina. But really, really amazing artwork. I can't say enough about it, as I do. As for like things provided here, we don't learn that much more about really Zuko, Iroh, or the Fire Nation. There's some really good insights into Iroh. This book is Iroh writing to Zuko, kind of before he dies, which is it does lay a pretty good background on this book, which makes it even more interesting. But he kind of covers things that we already kind of know about him. I'll go into more detail in the video, maybe on the top 10 most interesting facts from this book. But overall, I don't think it's a must buy, but I do think it's better than the previous one, which was Avatar Legacy, which was Tenzin writing to it was Aang writing to Tenzin. And I think I haven't had a chance to fully read the next one, which was Korra. I forgot what that one was called, but it's in a similar fashion. It's Korra kind of writing to the next Avatar. This book seemed kind of better than that, but it provides a little bit more context. This book provides a little more context on Iroh, and I think some of his relationships with his brother Ozai and his father, but it doesn't dive deep enough as I wanted it to. So it was a good buy for me, but I don't think it's a must. I don't think it's a must-have for everybody. But
I
it's
wish that
really
there
great
was
artwork.
a ton about his son. Like that would have been cool. But maybe there's just I mean his son presumably died very young. Like probably
Oh yeah. Son died on his siege at Ba Sing Se, which
yeah.
he mentions his son a lot.
Mhm. Do we know
Uh,
what's his name?
oh, his name is Luten.
Oh, Lieutenant. Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh, sad. Sad.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's it.
I would still. I have it on my to do list. I don't know where I need to fit it in with comics in between series, but I would like to read both of them. I think. I've actually kind of been in a book mood, which is a weird thing for me to say because I'm
Yeah.
not always a book person. Don't make me read words. But no, I do. I'm in a reading mood lately, and I'm interested in borrowing and reading both in the near future. I think.
And it's not a long read. I read it in like an hour and 30 minutes with kids distracting me. So
Nah, kids don't do that.
yeah.
That seems like a fair
Would you
recommendation.
shut up? I'm trying to read out.
Just
guys.
read it to them, read it to them.
She wanted me to, but I don't like doing that because I just want to read things in Iroh's voice. I don't want to read it in my own voice.
Oh, Chris, she would love your Iroh voice, though. You gotta do that. She will eat it up. But I don't know. I don't know if I ever heard you do an Iroh voice. You probably have to try it sometime and let me judge.
It's fine enough, I guess. I was more focused on enjoying it for my own self. I read her a lot of stuff at night, so it could be added to the list. Lately, we've been reading DC villains out of my DC encyclopedia, so that's coming into use.
Nice. Great children material. DC villains.
Showing them all the stuff.
So what'd you say, Jim?
No, that's great. That's great kid material. Read right before bedtime. Tell them about DC villains. Yeah.
She really wants to hear about villains. She's like, I want to hear about a villain who got hurt by chemicals. I'm like, why? Chemicals all the time. Like, I don't know. I'm like, that's so weird.
Whatever inspires their little minds. I don't know why it does sometimes, but whatever that is.
And like some of these things aren't for kids. It's like, oh yeah, this person assaulted this other person, and like when I'm reading it, I purposely skip over things, but I just keep going.
Someday she's gonna read the full thing. She's gonna be like, the missing texts. Like, he never told me about this before. With that recommendation, or light recommendation, Chris, thank you for the review. And I think let's go ahead and go over to the episode. The very entertaining episode that I'm not saying begrudgingly. And it is the beach. And we'll probably just do kind of normal, let Chris sort of take us through the step-by-step, and then we'll all three go through our ratings. And then at that point, I think we can have our let's call it like a miniature debate with the ratings, I think. Might be the better spot for it.
Yeah.
So, Chris, if you would care to walk us through the happenings.
All right. We are on Ember Island team. They don't have a team name like Team Avatar has. Do they?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're
Team Familial Treachery?
Team Fire Nation?
Team Fire Nation.
I don't know. I guess they're Team Rich Kids.
Team Rich Kids.
Yeah, Team Rich Kids.
That's what they are.
Team Avatar and Team Rich Kids.
And you can tell right away which one of those is going to be the bad people, for sure.
Okay, so Ozai, their father, is sending them off on a forced vacation, so he has time to, I don't know, talk with his counselors and advisors and stuff. And Zuko's all down about it and everything. And they end up on Ember Island, which they used to go there when they were kids, Zuko and Azula. And there's just a lot of memories there. It's a really interesting place. And this episode's really interesting because it kind of came out of nowhere. I listened to the commentary on this one. Like I said, I told you guys I watched this episode twice. I watched it once just straight through and once with commentary. And like in between season 2 and season 3, they went on like a writer's retreat. or something,
Nice.
which is really, yeah, it's really interesting. Like, yeah, we went out on a writer's retreat. I guess
Yeah.
maybe that just really jogs the mind and stuff. And this whole episode really came from Brian Canisco. He had all these drawings of Team Rich Kids, like in like in different like bathing suits and stuff. And
Yeah.
then someone was like, "Oh yeah, well they're on the beach. Oh, we should have an episode just about them, like on the beach. Like it'll be interesting. Like their story will be the A plot, and Team Avatar's story will be the B plot, which
Right.
doesn't happen ever
Right.
at all, really. So that was just really interesting. Um, but yeah, so Team Avatar, not Team Avatar, Team Rich Kids.
Team Rich Kids.
They
Sorry, if
go-
you're a wealthy person, we're not trying to comment on your morals or ethics. We don't want to scare our rich viewers away.
I was simply stating a fact.
That's right. Just
If you're a wealthy
observation. That's all it
person,
is.
please donate to our Patreon. We don't have one, but we will make one if you want to give us money.
Team Rich Kids, we will stop calling it Team Rich Kids if you give us money.
I'm a big Team Rich Kids fan.
It's just observation. That's all it is.
But I found all that really interesting. I just find that the dynamic between Azula and Zuko interesting. This is a very good sibling episode to where it's not combative at all. It's just them sitting there. And it starts off really much in the vein of that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone can chime in
Oh,
there.
okay. Okay. Yeah, that is interesting that this idea came from the retreat, because it feels like a retreat of its own from the rest of the plot. And like you said, their plot is the A plot and Team Avatar's is the B plot, which never happens, which I think as a kid when I was watching, being like, you know, like even when I was really young, I've like studied the structure of television, and I remember being like, that's super interesting. Like this is really different. And just the fact that these writers care about these characters enough that they're like, hey, they're not just villains. Like they're actual, you know, they have backgrounds, they have stories, they have, you know, what happens while Team Avatar is away, you know, or in hiding. Like what are these other antagonists doing? And again, like the more that I rewatch it, the more I recognize Zuko not as an antagonist, but as one of the protagonists. And so it kind of makes sense now that he this episode, and it's because I mean ultimately it's always going to be like more about Zuko than the others, but I think it makes sense. But it's really cool. It's a really cool structural deviation, and I love when they do this because they do it a handful of times, and that's what makes them really special.
Yeah. On to and then they're throwing a lot of comedy in this episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Weird comedy with the old twin sister ladies and their
yeah, it's definitely I watched the episode like 20 minutes before we started talking. So it's like very fresh in my mind, and it's very like it reminded me more of some of the anime that I grown up watching more than like some of the other episodes. Like
the
old twin ladies kind of feel like kind of fit some of that trope, I think.
Yeah, it definitely like leaned in a little bit more to the lighthearted anime comedy and the stylization as well. It's very like it's a teen drama episode, so a lot of the humor was like a little bit aged up for the show, which was interesting. So yeah, for sure.
So they go down to the beach and they all kind of go off and do their own things. Mai and Zuko have like a terrible relationship. Like this is what they do for fun. It's just sulking and stuff.
Yeah.
And wasn't this a relationship that we all sunk?
I think so. I think we're all pretty unhappy.
Yeah. I remember specifically when we were talking about the shipping episode, I thought about this episode so much. I was like,
it's not that we're saying they can't be together like in this time as young people grow up and they want to like date and stuff. But I think as far as any amount of long-term interest or prospects, we were all pretty heavy to like thinking.
Yeah.
And I stand by that.
I stand by it. Sorry.
Jaimee, by the way, that was a really well-liked episode. So thanks in hindsight. It was very entertaining.
I do that. That's excellent.
It was great.
Ty Lee, yeah, and then Ty Lee is sitting on the beach minding her own business, and she is immediately attracts the attention of several young men.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about Ty Lee a lot in our shipping thing, and how she could possibly be bisexual, and for some reason I just buy into that even more after watching this episode, which we'll get more into some of her and Azula moments later. But I don't know if just her physical traits of being like very flexible makes me just kind of project that onto her. But
very well.
I mean, we're just guessing. It's all projecting, really.
Yeah. I think this dynamic is interesting. Again, like a lot of the humor, a lot of the topics that are covered in this episode are aged up from the general audience of the series. And this is like kind of one that comes forward that she gets a lot of attention from the guys, and there is a little bit of jealousy from Azula there, and it's kind of hinted that it's Azula jealous of the attention, but it could be read other ways.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Azula, it's interesting. I think now Azula feels like she is, she's out of her element, right? It was really interesting in commentary because they mentioned that Azula is like the most perfect person. She's the most manipulative person. She's always thinking ahead, but those traits does not translate at all over into social life.
Right.
So she's like failing at this.
Yeah.
And so like the first thing she does at the beach is she goes and grabs up Team Rich Kids to go on the sporting event. So they can, dominate something physically. It's so Azula.
Yeah.
I can't stop laughing at Team Rich Kids.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they do dominate, but I think that's a great point, Chris, that she is so out of her element that she has to go find something that kind of puts her back into her element, and that's something competitive and potentially aggressive. Though it's about I also can't a little bit biased for this episode because there is a volleyball-ish type thing going on here, like not exactly volleyball.
This scene, I've said it before at some point on this podcast, I don't remember when. This scene is the baseball scene from Twilight, and I hate it. I hate it. It's garbage. No, it's garbage. It's like, hey, let's have the kids do the sports thing. I'm a sports fan. I have no need for sports in these kinds of shows and movies. I cannot believe
that you were even saying that
right now. I despise it.
Iconic scene.
Hey,
that is cinematic history right there.
My wife never watches this podcast. She loves us. She doesn't watch this podcast ever, so I'm willing to say this here, and don't ever tell her. But when we first watched Twilight together and I had no idea what it was, she was like, hey, I don't think you'll like it, but there's a scene or two in there that I think will interest you. Turns out one of those scenes she was talking about was that stupid baseball scene. And I make fun of her probably annually at least once for having said that in her naive youth. But don't ever bring that up around her because it's kind of a sore subject.
You know what? I love this scene.
Oh.
Well, because one thing, I think it works more so here than Twilight. I don't think the comparison's that well because in Avatar, their sports, pretty much all their sports, are formed around bending, right? It's formed around using everything to your advantage. Like like in the sport that Aang used with the air ball, like in pro bending. So to me, it's very applicable here, and they take full advantage of it. I love seeing Azula just through seeing her move, that the other girl with the pigtails move a couple times, Azula can decipher that, oh, she has an injury. Probably let's focus on this side of the ball.
And then it's like completely, that's like a null point because they just destroy the whole thing anyway.
Yeah.
It's clever. I think it's like a very clever, it's short and sweet and it does its job in this episode. Like I love the little volleyball scene thing, and plus you get that sweet moment where Zuko like whips off his like cape or something, and you get like the birds flying. That iconic GIF that I use on Twitter like every other day.
Oh, Shawn.
Important moment for me. Okay, you know what? That's high marks in this podcast.
And then I do love in where Azula, she takes up a notch so much in random moments in this episode. You know, that moment where she like strikes down the ball, fire bends it all, freaking leaves a freaking crater in the sand, and then the net is burning. She's like, now you have lived with your shame and everything. And then the intensity just stops. It's like, all right, that was fun. And they go.
That's the part that I like, is like her bad trash talk at the end. That's really like, of that scene, that part is the part that I do enjoy the most. Like, it's comedy, but it's not meant to be funny to her, I guess. Like, it's not soccer comedy. It's sort of a, I don't even know what to call it.
I mean, she's just so disconnected from reality.
Yeah. So I'll give you that part. I do like that little bit of dialogue there at the end.
It's so telling. Like it's supposed to be funny, and it's like this like weird little moment, but it's also like it's so important to the larger arc of her character, and especially what we see happens to her in the second half of season 3. So yeah,
I think it adds levity to the whole scene. That part of the thing with me is it always feels like it's trying really hard to be cool. So I need that little bit at the end to like, no, Shawn, you don't have to take this like quite so serious. It's just a game.
I will say this. I went into this episode, this rewatch, being like, oh, you know what, The Beach isn't one of my favorite episodes. I was probably more in line with Shawn, but for some reason this rewatch just made me enjoy it and appreciate it a lot more. Also, I think this episode does a really good job of showing that Zuko and Azula are not normal kids at all. Like, they don't know how to act socially because they weren't raised that way. Which, to segue into the next part of the story, Chan, Azula's her favorite man,
basically Chad of the Avatar world.
Yeah,
Chad.
Sorry, Chads. I'm just kidding. Chads and rich kids. I'm really sorry.
I mean, what percent of Chads are rich?
Oh,
I
man,
bet
probably all of them.
Of
probably
Chads
all
are
of
rich
them.
than Chris's. Definitely Shawn's.
Oh man.
That analysis and that analyst in me wants to do the analysis on that, but there's no way.
No, I kind of do. Yeah. I even think that different ways that you would spell different names would lead to different results. But another day.
Yeah. So they invite them to their party, and one thing is, I just find this so hilarious that they're like, oh yeah, some of the most important teams from the Fire Nation are going to be there.
Yeah. This writing is so clever. It's really, I feel like every line hits exactly what it needs to, and some of them are like super cheesy and teen drama like, because like that's the tone that they're going for, and it's just really clever. Yeah.
And this episode was written by Katie Mattila. She didn't write many episodes in Avatar. She Avatar extras writer. Oh, that's interesting. Anyway, she did write The Tale of Zuko and The Tale of Ba Sing Se.
Wow.
And I think that is the...
Chris, are you reading off the episodes she wrote, or are you just reading a list of my least favorite episodes? Yeah. What do you got over there?
Yeah, I need to be her friend because they're all my favorite episodes.
I don't want to diss her at all, because obviously she's very talented. But I will point out something later, I think, that contributes to my dislike of all three.
Okay, interesting.
That's not her, because again, I don't want to. She's probably amazing, and obviously she's very talented.
Yeah. She wrote Old Wounds, The Calling, and Remembrances. Old Wounds is good.
Wounds. Which one's
Old Wounds? Old Wounds is an episode of.
I will have to take note of that on the rewatch, to see how I react to those episodes, and if I react to them differently.
They like hook you in the same way that these previous ones have. That'd be interesting.
Or if there's some sort of like pattern to her writing style or the themes that she talks about or something like that. I'll have to pay attention to that on the rewatch.
That's a very
And
tangible thing for Chris to wrap his
it's actually pretty
analytical
interesting
mind
because
around.
Old Wounds is a lot about it's about Suyin and Lin Beifong's relationship and how that all faltered. Like goes into flashbacks, them being the daughters of Toph. The Calling wasn't a huge episode. And Remembrances is not a great episode, but there's a reason that it's not a great episode. It's a what do they call those episodes where they recap episode?
Oh. What do they call it?
But
I can't think of the word, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but in Legend of Korra though, that episode was like they had to take the money out of that episode because they would have had to like fire some people, and they didn't want to do that, and so they're like, fine, we'll just like reuse footage from other episodes. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the type of episodes that she writes. She doesn't write a lot of them, but she's written a lot of, I think, sibling kind of episodes.
It definitely sounds like, at least for Avatar, I can't say for Legend of Korra, but it definitely sounds like she was kind of their go-to if they had an episode of this style that's pulled away from their A story that maybe is a little bit more character driven.
Jaimee,
which is really interesting.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, as someone who's interested in television writing and structure and stuff like that, it's interesting to see how those episodes happen and where we fall on them. And I guess I like Zuko and I like his story. So like that's also it. But I think what these episodes do are I think they're so clever. And this one especially I really like.
Yep. All right. Shawn, you got anything to elaborate on? Anything else? I'll go through the episode just.
I am tolerant of creators of my favorite shows trying new things.
Good.
Oh yeah. The thing about Chan's party is they show up right. They show up on
time. Oh yeah, that is pretty funny. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yes. Azula says, "You said you'll be partying." The invitation said we'll be partying from dusk till dawn. It is dusk.
That, and I think that's like, you have to think like they're like the royal family, right? Like they're not late for things, and they were probably like very punctual, and yeah, they're definitely not regular kids.
Yeah.
Don't know how to party.
Yeah, interesting thing about the party is that they bring up in commentary that there was no dancing at this party.
Yeah.
Because the Fire Nation kids don't dance. And like dancing thing hasn't gotten to them yet.
Right. That's so clever. I didn't even think about that. I thought they just like didn't have, oh my gosh, but you're so right, because that was the whole thing with Aang in the school. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's so clever. See, it's like little tiny details like that I just love. Yeah.
Be sure to tweet that out. I don't want people to steal that nice info.
Yeah.
Wow. And then so they're at Chan's party. Zuko's being really a jerk, which this is one thing I don't like about this, but it's reasonable because Zuko doesn't know how to socialize with people. Mm-hmm. He's being a jerk, and he's thinking of May more in a sense of like an object, really, of like I need to be
this. Yeah. Well, okay, continue what your thought. But let's talk.
Oh no, it's good. And pretty much he pushes the other guy. I forgot his name, but also I really love the push he gives him because it's one of those like it reminds me of that 5-finger death thing and Kill Bill too, like to where like you don't move. It's not like a huge wind up push. It's just like all I need is this confined amount of space to push you 5 feet back, 10 feet back. They also do that same move in Legend of Korra when Korra is searching for Rava inside of Vaatu. Does this like same like push on the chest thing. Also, now that reminds me, I think in Doctor Strange she did. Anyway, not important.
It's a very popular move amongst.
It's a very popular move.
It looks impactful and very acute. It looks very just
Yes.
precise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like on the point of Zuko being just
A jerk.
annoying at this party, yeah, I get like it is interesting because he's like immediately jealous of whatever this guy. I mean, yeah, the kid didn't even do anything. He didn't say anything, and Zuko's like immediately jealous, and then Zuko's just being difficult the entire time. And I think it's again, it's really telling of, first of all, just this. I don't like this Zuko Mai thing. It's proof that it's kind of very shallow at this point. Like I've said previously, they kind of try to redeem it a little bit in the comics, but it's so shallow at this point. Like they're just doing it because it's convenient, it's easy, and there's no trust or communication between them. So that's like annoying. But also, like Zuko, as he says later, is not happy in this situation and in his just the whole situation of his life right now. And I think that it's just him being like, I'm supposed to be enjoying this, or he's like trying to do what he thinks you're supposed to do in those situations, and he's just not comfortable in them and he's not good at it. And it's just kind of coming out terribly. Like,
No.
they don't know how to deal with any of this.
Yeah.
And Zuko in particular is not handling it well. Which, per usual, he doesn't handle a lot of things well. Like there's few things he handles well, but he figures it out by the end.
He's not a coper.
No,
Really?
not really. No. Yeah, he's just angry and very angry in this episode in particular. And we'll get to that as it goes on.
I feel like Shawn is just like, he doesn't want to talk at all because he doesn't have much good things to say.
He's like, this is the worst.
No, I appreciate that you guys are at least pointing out like the things that I enjoy in the episode and I may not think about. Like if I'm watching the episode and I see those things, I'm like, haha, that's funny, but I don't think about it later. But it seems like you guys are picking those things out, so I am grateful for your details because it is helping me enjoy the episode more retroactively.
Well,
also at the party, Ty Lee is getting somewhat harassed by all these men or boys that are just falling in love with her.
Bunch of douchebags, really. Let's be honest.
yeah.
She's like, I like you all, and then one guy's like, but who do you like? It's so weird. Then she said she can't decide, and she blocks them all, and she just cartwheels away.
Yeah,
which is kind of a funny scene. And her and Azula's interaction. Azula just like, it's so interesting because Azula knows that Ty Lee is better at her than at being with men, and being with boys, and being attracted to them, and she immediately chops Ty Lee down, saying they're only like that because you make it too easy for them. And then Ty Lee cries about it. Like it reminds me so much of the flashback of when they were all kids, and the episode Zuko Alone. Yes, and Ty Lee does like a cartwheel. Azula tries to do it and she doesn't do it, and then Ty Lee does it, she does it, and Azula just pushes her.
Yeah.
Like Azula can never accept that someone is better at her at something, even something so trivial as men throwing themselves at her.
Yeah.
And then Azula does apologize to her. This is a really great Ty Lee Azula moment, I think. And Azula says like, oh, I'm not good around boys and men because I think they always think I'm going to attack them or something. And then I love Ty Lee saying like, but Azula, you're like the smartest, prettiest, most perfect girl I know.
Yeah.
And so that's the side that if you look a lot into it, you might be like, oh, well, this Ty Lee, does she feel about Azula a certain way? Because those are like high accolades. Like I don't talk about anybody like, like that.
Yeah.
Except my wife. So
I was just saying, I tell my wife that all the time. It's just
yeah. It's an interesting, the whole dynamic. I think it's interesting. I think it's great that we pointed out that this episode was written by a woman, because I think that there is kind of like a nuance to that situation where Azula has to first like cut down Ty Lee and say, oh well, you make it easy for them, which is, you know, especially like in high school, especially that age, just that is what happens. You know, you get people, it kind of brings out the worst in people, and they go for like the really easy attacks, especially like verbal attacks. And I think like Ty Lee like handles it super well, and I think that's like, it's great because you can actually see how much more mature Ty Lee is in that moment than Azula, and again how far removed Azula is from being able to communicate with others in any kind of meaningful way. But then it's also nice that there is that very quick reversal, and Azula kind of opens up to the idea of letting somebody help her in any capacity.
Yeah.
We'll see. And then, well, it turns out a little bit. So, yeah, we'll see if it works out, but.
So then she uses that advice she gives her about like laughing at guys' jokes and stuff, which probably does work, honestly.
It worked on me. I don't know.
Can't say I've had all that much luck, but anyway.
And she uses it on Chan. She does a much better job this time for a short period of time. I don't know where my face went, but anyway. But she does there we go. But she does a pretty good job there for a time talking to Chan or Chad, whatever his name is, and and they kiss, and then she takes it way too far. It's like, yeah, we would be the most dominant couple ever, and like, yeah, she bends, and the fire behind her turns blue also, and like his reaction to it is so comical. Like he's just like, holy crap, this girl is crazy.
Yep. Yeah, and that's funny. Yeah, well, for one, again, this is one of those moments that there's so many in this episode that are dual, like, it's really funny on the surface, and it's like really sad when you think about it, because it's like, well, she's probably reacting that way because, all right, so she got to kiss this boy, got that far, great. But it's like in the Fire Nation, like they're not really married, like they're marrying for political gain, and that has been, especially like in her role as the princess, they're not thinking about marrying for actual reasons, which is kind of another reason why Zuko and Mai's relationship is so shallow, besides the fact that they're like children, but like aside from that, but like it's kind of their families, and it's money and it's power and it's wealth and it's status, and that's kind of what it is more about. So to Azula, it's just like another like thing to conquer. So, yeah.
Yep. And and at that on the other side of this, Zuko got kicked out of the party, and this is a moment of the episode that really elevated it for me. In the commentary, Brian Gnisco says like this is one of his favorite scenes in the entire show. Mm-hmm. It's just Zuko walking on the beach, walking up to the Ember Island house, and just remembering things. Jeremy Zuckerman's score comes in, and it is honestly beautiful, yet just subtle and also just sad. Like you get you really get into the mind of Zuko, mm-hmm, and there's not a word said for maybe like 2 minutes. It's just all music and visuals informing mm-hmm you of the story. I think they do such a good job of it. Just a beautiful job. And then even after he's sulking there for a minute, Azula leaves the party. She catches up with him. She's like, why are you here? Essentially. And she does seem like a somewhat concerned sister. That's one which I think is a really great sibling episode for those two. Mm-hmm. And then yeah. So you guys have anything to expound about on that point?
Yeah, really just that it shows not only like what he remembers and the quote unquote good times that he had at one point while he was a kid there, but also just like what he lost and what he was never able to have, because that's like those memories are so few and far between for him, and he says that they feel like so long ago, they're so distant, and so much has happened to him since those memories. And I also think that thinking about abusive relationships with like a parental figure, or anybody that's in a position of power over a child, I think it's like hard to think about those happy moments that you might have with that person and also still be reminded of abuse that they faced. So yeah, it's a really powerful moment, and it's, like, the score is really beautiful, and there's just a lot going on, and they don't even have to say anything about it, which is a testament to their storytelling power. Shawn?
I'm sorry, I was just thinking about how I wish I had like a lap table that fit perfectly over my office chair.
I'm sure you were. Extremely deep discussion.
It is nice to see the connection between Zuko's memories of it's not like the closest resemblance that we probably ever get to the normal-ish parts of his childhood versus now the opportunity to have like a normal teen moment. I kind of like that parallel there. That's all.
And the visuals are really good. I mean, there's the one of Iroh holding Zuko as a baby with Lieutenant on the other side.
Yeah,
it's one of the saddest images.
Yeah, cries forever.
Chris, don't make me feel feelings. Come on.
All right, so they have a nice chat on the beach. Not really a nice chat.
Kind of heated.
So Zuko's broken up with May, and they pretty much get in a huge argument with each other. They do the whole Breakfast Club thing, which they know they're doing it. And the point in this, some points in this discussion aren't that great. I think not a lot of them, just a few points. The point that wasn't that great was Ty Lee saying like, guys, we shouldn't be talking like this. Like it's gonna make us mad, and our faces are gonna break out and something. Well, that was kind of dumb, but at least it was a good segue into Zuko statement of like, normal kids worry about their face, which is true. In high school, you know how much I worried about the pimples on my face. And he says like normal kids worry about their face. Like I don't have that luxury. I think that writing is pretty good. My father decided to teach me a permanent lesson on my face. Like, and the way he delivers this line, I think was really good. Like it's full of so much conviction and so much like he still feels shame, and that like no matter what, he's gonna feel that shame. Even if he's back in the Fire Nation, even if his father still welcomed him, he still walking around with the reminder every single day when he looks in the mirror of that shame.
Yeah, I one reason that this is a very memorable episode for me too is that line that he says, like, I don't have that luxury. It's a really powerful line, and just talking about, I think it really encapsulates what Zuko is feeling. Even in a response to something pretty dumb that said. This like little airing of grievances is a great scene. I think they all make pretty strong points. I mean, aside from that, but that was like almost joking. But I think they're kind of like hitting the nail on the head. And I think about like maybe to older like viewers, you're like, oh, that seems like maybe it's a little bit too on the nose. Like they're too specific about what their problems are. But then I was watching this episode and I was like, kids are watching this and these are like really insightful, emotional issues that they're talking about. And I think it's like really interesting that the writers were like, hey, let's just put it all out there. Like, we know kids are going to be our audience, but we're not going to shy away from these specific things, these topics that they're talking about.
It is really interesting they decided to add more layers to these villains in fairly small moments. Ty Lee's like, oh, she grew up, like Zuko calls her circus freak at one point, which is a really like terrible thing to say, like circus freak.
Low blow, man.
No, I'm very, very low blow. But she's like, I'm proud to be a circus freak. I came from a home of of all these girls who look like me, her twin sisters, her story's not as, and maybe I just don't relate to that as much. It's not as compelling as everyone else's stories, but it's still there's still an underlying story there of finding your identity, being lost in the shuffle.
Right.
Chris, I wonder if that's because you don't have brothers, correct? You have sisters.
I have 4 sisters, so I stand out.
Well, I was
Your
gonna say,
sisters are like, I understand. I get Tylee.
well, yeah, that's it's not that I like her story, you know, but in the way that Jaimee said, it might be more of an age thing of me being like, oh, just stupid kids having stupid kid problems. But I did like Tylee in the sense, like, yeah, I got three brothers, and we all look and act pretty different. But you know, it was kind of relatable to me, and so that's probably the only reason that maybe that one doesn't
Shawn's older
hook.
brother can dunk, and Shawn can't.
Funny story about, I cannot even touch the rim. Chris, funny story to tell you off the air. It's not that it's inappropriate. It's just not worth public time. Yeah.
Funny enough, weirdly enough, May, a character who I don't really like, I probably related her story most, like about, you know, her being like, oh, if I acted out, like my parents, you know, quickly lashed out at me. Like, and I think about, and also, man, we're getting way deeper into this than I thought we would. Like, I think about how, like how I reacted growing up to like my parents and stuff. Like it was always like a, you know, speak when, maybe not speak when spoken to, but you never spoke out of turn, right? I never raised my voice against my parents because I never, whatever my parents told me to do, most of the time I did it. Like, sure, I got in trouble, but I didn't get in trouble because I just disregarded something my parents said. Because my father was pretty hard on us. Like he whooped us and stuff, which I'm fine with him, you know, whooping us nowadays. That's, you know, the type of whoopings they gave us would be, it'll definitely be abuse, like no doubt about it. But I think about my own daughter. Like my own daughter talks back sometimes. I think to myself, like, I never talked back to my parents, and she's not purposely talking back to me, but I would have, if I told my daughter, my dad told me to do something growing up, I did it pretty immediately. I tell my daughter to do something, it takes her a while sometimes to do it. I'm like, I haven't instilled that huge sense of fear into her that my dad instilled into me, which is
yeah,
like it's a balance, right? It's like I don't want to do that because I don't whoop my daughter. I mean, I might spank her every now and then, but that's really those times are because I need her to do something that's really for her own safety at that point in time. Like, hey, don't stick that in there. Stop that. Like spanking, that's fine. But so it's a balance. So I, in a way, like, also I'm one of those people who don't speak up, right? I don't. It's not that I don't speak up. It's just that I am very deliberate in what I'm saying, and so usually I go through in my head first. I tend to think a lot before I talk, and I feel like my daughter's not that way, but I feel like I am that way because, just because the way I was raised, right? Everything coming out of my voice, I like to have some meaning to it. I'm not gonna just say stuff for no reason. And so, in a weird way, I relate way more to May than I think any of the other ones.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think like what's interesting about her story specifically, or well, I think what the writing does here that's really great is they all go around and they all say basically, here's why I am the way that I am, and here's why I'm messed up, and you know,
so if I'm Tylee and Chris is May, who does that make Jaimee?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can understand. I like all their arguments a lot. I think they all make sense. But to me, what's more interesting is the comment that May makes about she's directing it towards Zuko, and she says, "That's great. Doesn't give you an excuse to behave the way that you're behaving now." And I think that's ultimately what this conversation, this whole talk, and this is like such a big kind of praise to the writers and to the creators who really decided to put this in there because they did not have to.
Good job pointing that out. Brian Konietzko in the commentary said that exact same thing. Is like, and that statement from May is really vital. Like, just because, like, it's really sad that bad things happen to you, but you can get over that. That's not the excuse you should set for yourself for the reason that you are that you are.
Right, and it's like a personal choice that you kind of like have to make every single day, and this just all comes down to the larger theme, not only of Zuko's arc, Zuko's story, but of the whole show, you know, about forgiveness, about what has happened to you. Think about Katara's story too, like how so much has happened to her, and she ultimately has to make a choice about how she is going to react in later the Southern Raiders. Is that what that episode is called? The Southern Raiders. So she goes, yeah. So there's that. There's when Aang has to decide what he's going to do with the Fire Lord. Like all of these things kind of come back to this idea of like, yes, you've been through trauma. How are you going to react to that trauma? And this is coming out in this very, almost silly kind of talk amongst teenagers. And I think it's just so brilliant. It's such a brilliant addition to this story right now. And it's such strong writing that they're able to do this so seamlessly.
So in the interest of time, unless you guys have additional points, I would like to try to push us forward just because I know that we will have some sort of fun dialogue when it comes to ratings. And I want to make sure that we don't feel like we have to rush through that.
All right, so it all ends and they all happy-go-lucky. Azula does give her quick sap story, which one thing I don't buy into. I think her perception of her mom is that her mom didn't love her, but that's really just Azula's reflection of herself.
Right.
Because her mom did clearly love her.
Right.
If if you read the search, like plenty of times, and she's when she tries to leave Ozai, she says like, "Oh, I'm taking the kids." She says both kids, and now it's just like, "I'm just taking Zuko." He's like, "No." When she kisses them goodbye, she kisses Zuko goodbye. Yeah. You see that in the show, but you don't see in the show that she also kisses Azula goodbye. So, and to me, I think some people use that to justify Azula's actions even more. Like they take Azula's words to justify against her mom, as if that's actually what her mom felt about her, which I completely
That's a good point. Yeah, and also like what Azula does in that moment is she tries to kind of act like she's above kind of feeling anger in that situation. She's like, oh, well, it was true, which is like true, and that's just how we have to deal with it. But actually, I think this is just like, this is her holding in her unraveling until we see it later down the line, which is it.
It does plant some seeds. Yeah, definitely. Then Combustion Man stuff. So that ends their plot. The A plot, which villains usually don't have the A plot. But on the B plot, pretty much just simply to wrap up, Zuko, the assassin that he sent after Team Avatar. This is the first time we've seen combustion bending. At this point, I think he's just called Sparky. No, they didn't give him a name in this episode.
I think it's the other way around. I think in this episode he's Combustion Man, and then in the future...
Oh, no, his final name is Combustion Man.
So in this one, he doesn't have a name at all.
Him a name in this one. I think in the beginning of the Runaway episode, Sokka calls him Sparky Boom Man, and then by the end of it, he calls him Combustion Man.
You're right. In this one, he's still a nameless kind of entity, at least to Team Avatar.
Yeah. So pretty much, Combustion Man's chasing him, and they get away from him, and that's pretty much their story. Not much story there. It's just, not much hey, there's an assassin. Just what's going on with Team Avatar.
I think it pops up like 2 different times, but it doesn't develop a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it does kind of put in, like, the one parallel or, like, the one kind of way that it does do is that Zuko is talking about being really confused. He's angry at himself, and he doesn't know.
Oh, yeah. We didn't get to that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it is interesting that, like, oh, yeah, here's also this reminder that he sent an assassin after this group of kids. And also the fact that this group of kids could fight off this assassin is just really impressive. The fight that Combustion Man has with Aang is actually, like, it's not really a fight because, I mean, Aang is mostly, like, evading, but
it's a chase.
Cool.
It's a chase scene.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. Aang is so great. That's what I get from these rewatches. I'm like, wow, Aang is so powerful and so smart, and like, why was I not a fan when I was younger? I was just like, I thought he was boring. I was so wrong.
All right, that's pretty much the episode. Let's get to the ratings.
So, in advance, I kind of forget which order I put the ratings in. It doesn't really matter too much, but I figured if you guys were amenable to the idea that we would each give our rating kind of in standard fashion, but then at the end, we would a little like head-to-head opportunity if we need to. If we need to, maybe we'll all be in exact agreement. But
no, we won't, Shawn.
But for just for reference, I don't remember whose comes first. I think Chris's. Okay, Chris, do you care to give your ratings first?
Which So usually I give Shawn my rating scores earlier in the day, but this time I wanted to surprise him because I surprised myself with these ratings.
Ooh.
So audio visual, it's getting a 9 out of 10.
Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah,
really got you. Yeah.
yeah, I know. Mostly because of that one scene with Zuko, like I mentioned before, so much
Mhm.
amazing storytelling. Also, the literal audio of Kabushman's bending was done really well. It's a new bending element, and that sound mix is probably the best sound mixing that they do. And they do a really great creative sound mixing with the show.
Mhm.
Um, and also, I didn't mention this before, but in that scene on the campfire, Dante Basco, I think, delivers some of his best work as Zuko, especially when he's, talking at the end there, when he's talking about like why
Mhm.
he's mad and the camera cuts and everything. He's like, "Are you mad at this?" He's like, "No, no, 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 no." Like the way he's talking, there's just so much like confusion in it. So gave it a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
Story, I gave an 8 out of 10 because really you didn't necessarily need the story. Really, I probably could have given this an 8.5. But it doesn't drive the major plot all the way along. But there is some really great character build up here. I think if I was to go back, actually, I may give that. Nope, it gets an 8 because I'm not going to change it now. Uh, just a lot of great character, a lot of great moments that inform the characters here. Memorable, given an 8.5. I think there's some great like Azula and Sokka, not Sokka, Azula. I don't think Sokka has like one line, I think, in this. Some great Azula and Zuko just moments, a lot of brotherly stuff here, which I think I maybe relate to most because I have a bunch of sisters, right? And I kind of think about like my closest sister to me in age, not necessarily like, I mean, she is probably my closest. We grew up in the same room for like 13 years or something. Um, but we have sometimes some of that rivalry. Anyway, gave memorable an 8.5. So it brings my weighted average score to an 8.4 out of 10.
Nice. That's solid. Yeah,
Jaimee, I think mine is next, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Oh, I lied. I saved mine for last. Oh, how selfish of me. Okay, never mind. Jaimee, would you please go next?
Yeah.
I didn't
Dang.
know how to weight yours. Also, you weight them however you like. I was just putting this up there for comedy and presumption.
Close, close.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm actually super surprised that Chris's ratings were higher than mine because I
Me
love this
too.
episode, but I didn't rate it. I think in comparison to the other episodes I've been on, because I continually just come back for the ones I really, really, really like. Compared to my other episodes, I feel like this one didn't rate as highly, even though I am very fond of it. Audio visual, I actually only gave a 7, not because I didn't think it was. I think it's hard out of this 10-point scale.
Yeah.
I need less numbers to work with. I gave it a 7 because I kind of changed my mind and wanted to go to an 8 because the score, and actually what pushed it for me was I forgot how intricate the chase with Combustion Man was, and
Mm-hmm.
Aang has that one sweet move that they do in slow mo, and it like gets away. That's a really sweet moment. So I actually like wanted to put it higher because of that, which seems kind of like counterintuitive, but anyway. So audiovisual, I'm gonna go ahead and give an 8. Story, I also rated this as a 7, not because I don't love the story, but because it almost doesn't have like its own narrative flow the way that it's taken out of the structure of the rest of the show. It's kind of just it's a really thought-provoking episode, and it's more of like a conversation than it is like a true story. So I think if you were asked, if someone were like, oh, like what was the plot of the beach, you'd be like, they went to the beach and like the party, and that's what happened. So like story, like I gave a 7. But memorability, for memorable, I gave a 9 out of 10 because I think about this episode all the time. It is one that comes back to me, like just sometimes just randomly. I'm like, wow, remember that great episode on the beach? Like, and it's also so different from all the other episodes. I cannot do math, so I don't know what that total is, but it's probably lower than like expected, and that's not because I don't like it. It's just like the weird way that numbers work, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, but it'd be like Would that be 7.5 ish, give or take? I kind of forget the exact ones.
Yeah,
there already.
I feel like does not represent my feelings on this episode, but I was trying to be like very literal and fair with the numbers.
You know, we call it memorable, but in my head, it's always really just that X factor. Like, why does this episode impact you? So at least it feels appropriate.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, hey, it's really meaningful to you. You slap it really high in that category because it's when you go back to. That's almost literally memorable. So
yeah,
at least that's how I abuse that category personally.
yeah.
So mine, I went with a audiovisual. I gave it a 7. I will say of the 3 ratings, this is the one that after listening to you guys, I could see some change for that. Probably not giving enough appreciation to the detail, but I went with a 7 because it just strikes me as kind of 7 has been like our sort of average quote unquote episode of Avatar, and it does some nice things audio visually. There is nice design, nice amount of detail. The score is really excellent. So I was like, all right, 7. I could see that I probably missed some things and it might deserve higher, but I'll stick to my guns there. Story, and this is the big part for me, is that, and the biggest point that I'll make all episode is I hate vignettes. I hate flashback episodes. I hate like compilation. I don't even know what else to call them. Any episode that strays away from like I want a beginning to end narrative. I want it self-contained. I don't want a lot of flashbacks. I don't want multiple timelines. I don't want any of that nonsense. I like my stories
All the fun stuff.
Exactly. I hate it all. And not just in this show, in any TV show, in any movie. I want to hear a story front to back without any gimmicks. I hate when movies and things like start you out in one time period and then it either jumps way ahead or jumps way back as like a structuring device. I despise it. Just tell me a story in the order that it happened, in chronological order, with all the details I need to know along the way. Just tell me. That's a good story. Don't use all this gimmicks and nonsense. And then the other part is that there's barely a story here. You could contain all of the necessary information from this episode, all the things you learn, you could get basically out of like 2 or 3 minutes of that little fireside chat. You could beef that up and you'd have every important thing out of this episode. It is not useful to me. I'm giving it a 4. In my mind, if a 7 is like an average Avatar and a 5 is like average television, this is less interesting to me than the average episode of anything.
Wow.
The story. It is because it's not a story. There's nothing useful here. It's all superfluous context. It's not a story. It's not good or interesting to me. But then on memorable, I will admit that there are enough individual pieces and parts that I like, enough neat, cute things, enough things that stand out to me that I'll still go back and give it like an 8 on the memorable. So it really it's the style of episode that I detest in all forms of media. I'm not just this show. I hate it all. Just tell me a story. Be good at storytelling without gimmicks.
I am such the opposite. I mean, I love give me a story. That all sounds great. But I'm like, ooh, how can we throw in this like weird structural change or something? But that being said, I don't like gimmicks. I want it to actually have a point. And I feel like analytically there's
I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I love stand-up comedy. And my favorite stand-up comics, it's like the same way. You don't have to put on like a regular comedy sort of routine for me. You don't have to have like this sort of nice flowing show as much as if I go to stand-up comedy, I just want to hear jokes. You just be good at telling jokes. And I kind of feel the same way about like TV shows. Like, just be good at telling me a story in this episode. I hate cliffhangers. When we do these episodes, like the back-to-back like season finales, the hour-longs, like if I didn't see those originally and if I'd had to wait a week, it probably would have just really made me mad. I get to watch them in hindsight now and I don't have to care, but I despise that. Just tell me the story. Give me some closure. I like closure. And that's my shtick. That's my whining.
That's
fair enough.
Comes down to personal preference and without a whole lot of logic, I guess. I'm not trying to defend it by saying personal preference. Preference without logic is about all it amounts to.
I do think the story is fairly simplistic, right? You can break it down to Team Rich Kids go to party and they
find out they're weird.
Yeah, find out their word. And then they crashed the party, which we didn't mention before. They crashed the party afterwards.
They do. Yeah,
Oh
it's pretty
yeah,
funny.
they like destroyed the house.
Yeah, they destroyed the house. I kind of want. I always like jerks to get their comeuppance, like to be put in their place.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Which they did get. They did get their comeuppance, but they didn't get put in their place. If they got really put in their place, they would have been like, "I am Princess Azula of the Fire Nation, and bow to me."
Why didn't they?
Like that have milked that a little bit, you know?
Yeah, what a missed opportunity. They should have been like, yeah, we just destroyed your house. Who cares? We are the heirs to the throne. Oh my, you're so right.
That would have been so Team Rich Kid.
Like we took Ba Sing Se, us four, nobody else.
Yeah.
We took Ba Sing Se. You think we can't? Like they could literally kill everybody.
You're so right, Chris. You were so right about that. Wow.
We also missed an opportunity to make a John Mulaney reference when we were talking about pushing him. We didn't, so we missed two important things.
I'm gonna push.
Anyway. Push it. Okay, sorry.
I forgot what my point was going to be.
Sorry, my bad.
No, it's fine.
Happens.
Okay, so story is important. There's no huge story here, but what great filler episodes do is that it doesn't necessarily push the story narrative forward of the overarching story, but it informs the characters even more. Mm-hmm. And I think they did that with all four of these characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we're with. And but before, May was just gloomy girl, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and that would have been enough. That would have been enough just to be the Daria-like character.
Couldn't you have implied that her family, given the positions that we've seen them in previously, though, like, did you really need her to say that, or could you have just been like,
I did.
Oh, she's boring because she's got a strict family.
I would have implied that. I just would have implied that she's bored, and that's why she's like that. Is that her life is just so cushy that she's bored, but that's not why she acts like that. She acts like that because she's afraid to be shut down so much that she doesn't express herself.
When I think a good filler episode, there's one coming up, and I don't want to spoil what it is, but I think that Chris probably doesn't like it, and I think that I probably do like it, because when I think filler episode, I think it's a standalone story, but that it could fit anywhere. Like, it doesn't contribute chronologically maybe to the larger plot, but I still want it to just be a really interesting or unique kind of standalone story. I
think that's what this is. I think it is a very unique it stands alone as in a story that it's not. It's about people that are other than our protagonists.
Gross. Ew. Team Red Kid. Ew.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just kidding.
No, but I agree. I think what's cool about this episode is that you are right, Shawn, in that like they didn't have to say that. Like it would have been enough for these characters to just kind of like live off of what we already knew about them, and you can kind of make your own assumptions. Like, I think
we would be pretty close on most of them. Tylee's would have been the most surprising to me, because at no point in the TV show do you get other really like family context. You know, she ran away to join the circus, which is kind of a storytelling trope of its own, so maybe you still could have guessed. Like, May, we knew she had a family in a political realm with a baby also. Like, I don't know, we could have implied some things, but it's fine.
I think it's just the fact that like they didn't have to say any of that, but they took the time to do it, and I think the fact that they had created a series which allowed them to diverge so fully from their A plot or their normal A plot. I think I just think like from a writing standpoint, I'm like, wow, this was super cool. That's what I love about it.
I will admit that after discussing with you guys, I find that there are far more like memorable, I'm going to call them like memorable pieces, things that stick out as fun individual pieces of show, even if it doesn't change my whole feelings on the episode all that far.
Yeah, like I said, I am completely surprised. I expected to come out and be like, 7.5, you know? Like, I just now put in, because I'm pretty sure I'm fine with the 8.5 a story, even though I said 8, which that jumps into like an 8.7, which is like a really high. Really the only thing this episode is missing for me, the story is not the overarching story of like going to a party and being in high school isn't all that interesting. But like the Breakfast Club, right? It's about dealing with those high school issues. And it's interesting because I didn't even think about that when I was in high school watching. Wait, when did this premiere? I was in college, so I might have been over my insecurities in high school. For some reason, once I got to college, I stopped caring about things.
Yeah.
But or
Yeah,
I just kind of stopped caring about what people thought about me. It's weird, kind of like a switch kind of went off.
It's a funny reference to me at the Breakfast Club because that is one movie that I have zero patience for. None whatsoever. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
This episode.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
Don't you?
Oh, no, don't you start saying you shut it off right now. It's only funny because I'm watching Community, so I'm into a movies and cultural references mood right now. That's the only reason.
I'm pretty sure they reference it in an episode. Of course they do. Molly, yeah, Abed brings it up.
Molly, not Molly. He's like Marnie Ringworm or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's all my thoughts on the episode. I feel like I'm missing something here about Zuko though. The thing I really liked about Zuko in this episode, right? So Zuko betrayed Team Avatar, but he's not evil. Like even here, he's like, I'm confused. I don't know the difference between right and wrong anymore. Like Azula knows the difference between right and wrong. Azula knows that she is evil, but Zuko still has in his mind that he's doing the right thing of betraying them because the right thing would be him being back in his father's good side and everything, but he's still so confused about it.
Yeah. No, it's so good. Such good Zuko content in this episode. He's confused. He feels like he should be happy. He's not. And this is where he kind of realizes, actually, how did I not say this earlier? This is like the one thing when I think about memorable about this episode. It's like, this is the one redeeming episode that I'm like, dang it, I wish that Zuko would have been able to be with Team Avatar from the beginning of book 3. But if he did that, this episode would not exist. And so for that reason,
sounds like a fair trade. I think Azula, I gotta go back to Chris's point. I don't think she knows the difference between right and wrong, and as much as like in my mind, she's like a Voldemort character, right? She's like there's only power, and there's people who want the power, and then people who don't think that it matters, and that's so it's like a different. It's like I don't think she actively thinks she's doing wrong. I think she just is driven by that singular goal, kind of.
Yeah, no, I completely.
Yeah, like her philosophy is what's right and wrong. It all depends on who has the power. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, I determine what's right and wrong.
Yeah, which is funny because like that is complete. Like Ozai said something to that effect to Zuko, when and I forget what comic it is. Probably it's not Smoke and Shadow. But I get the promise. In the promise, Zuko visits his father to get like advice, which is weird. But his father says like, "You're the Fire Lord. Whatever you say is right. Essentially, like whatever you deem it is right because you, the Fire Lord, says it is. So pretty much stop being you, Zuko. Just do whatever you want to do. Like throw your power around wherever you want to throw it."
Like, yeah, there's no like moral question. It's about power. Yeah, no, this episode hits it home though, because I think this is I think there are so many turning points for Zuko, but I really think this is a big one. And I think just being able to really be in the Fire Nation and be with the people that he would have been with if this horrible thing hadn't happened to him, and to be in that world and to be like, this is not only not what I think it was going to be, but this also just does not feel right. Like I'm here right now and something feels wrong. And like, this is when he really starts to figure it out. Yeah, great episode. Great episode, great Zuko content.
It's a great 5 minutes stuffed into a 20-minute episode. Scattered throughout a 20-minute episode.
Listen, it's very contemplative. We're going to chew on some thoughts. We're going to air some grievances. We are going to get the words out.
I'm going to take this as a high compliment that I enjoyed this discussion with you guys about the episode at least a bajillion times more than I have ever enjoyed this episode. It's way more entertaining right here in this context, in this room. What does Abed call it? A box episode when they're all like trapped in the room?
It's called a bottle episode.
A bottle episode when they're trying to figure out who stole Annie's pen.
Yes.
I hate those kinds of episodes.
Amazing
also.
episode.
I like that episode because of like its satirical sense. But he's right. I do hate that kind of episode. But I like in the second season where he's getting more meta about episode types and things like that. He gets his meta goes up a notch. But well, I think we've probably overstayed our welcome. I don't know what our average score was. It probably I'm gonna say be in the realm of 8.2.
Shawn, what was yours?
I don't remember the average on it, but I was like at 7, 4, and 8. 7, 4, and 8, and I'll back down from the 7 and maybe even the 8, but I will not back down from the 4. I would rather watch a random episode of Judge Judy.
What, a 6.5 then?
That sounds about right, give or take. So I'm going to say we would be in the low 8s as an overall. The low 8s.
Probably like a 7.4.
Oh, you think it'd be that low? Or mine be a 7.4.
No, yours would be like a 6.5. It's maybe like a 7.7.
This episode, this is a good representation, I think, of how the general public would feel. I imagine there's a certain number of general public that really loves it, and the rest of the general public that really does not. And so our scattered choices probably is a good representation, I think. Way to represent. Yeah, we did good today. Hey, look, there's Combustion Man.
We are seeing just the beginning of him. There's more to come.
In all of his glory. So, that being said, thank you, Jaimee, very much for joining us for this wildly entertaining podcast. About a divisive episode. And Chris as well. You know what, Chris? I should thank you every week. It's just because you're not a guest doesn't mean you don't deserve some thank you. In the meantime, we will.
He's so cute.
Hi, buddy. Thanks, Doggo, for joining us. He actually looks like he's ready for bed too. He's like, all right, you put me down. I'm gonna go to sleep.
It's a girl. She was just down
here. I wish I had a dog. I have an apartment, a tiny one. I can't have dogs.
You just gotta get a smaller dog. That's all.
Sneak it in there. She has something on her fur. Anyway, sorry.
Don't be sorry. You never had to apologize for dogs. Thank you for joining us. Next week is Valentine's Day, and I don't know if we have any special Valentine's Day episode theme ideas.
Why did you put the shipping on Valentine's Day?
We should have done the shipping. You're right. We should have waited.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
Yeah, we'll just re-air the shipping when nobody will even notice. In the meantime, thank you for watching.
So good. You can listen to it so many times and never get bored.
I actually probably could. Of all the ones that I listened to the full way through, you bet I listened to every 120 minutes of that podcast again the next day. So thank you all for joining us for Avatar: The Last Podcasters. I'm Shawn. That's Jaimee, and Chris is also there, and all of our contact stuff, as always, will be in the description. So check us out on Twitter and Instagram and all the other places. And that's all I got to say. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
Goodbye.